Opening scene. A man is driving a car. He picks up his personal phone but doesn't make a call. Instead, he places the phone down and picks up another older phone, switches it on, and makes a call. This man is the killer of the film. As soon as the old phone is switched on, a police control room officer notices it and informs a superior, mentioning the phone's location. The killer drives his car into an alley. After some distance, he stops the car. Opposite his car, a vintage Contessa car is parked. A man steps out of the Contessa and approaches the killer's car. This man is a significant character in the story, and viewers are likely to guess his role incorrectly. For now, let's call him X. X walks towards the killer's car mirror, and the scene cuts here. Next scene. A woman is shown lying in a pool of blood. This is the hero's wife. The hero, Nanda Kishore, is a deputy superintendent in the crime branch. Upon seeing his wife bleeding from self-inflicted wounds, he rushes her to the hospital. While consoling her, she confesses she had intended to die by suicide because she couldn't cope with their child's loss. Nanda convinces her to abandon such thoughts, but it's revealed later that his wife ultimately took her life in his absence. While Nanda is away, a man visits his home. This visitor is their neighbor, curious about Nanda's whereabouts. However, he leaves after learning Nanda isn't home. Meanwhile, Nanda's phone remains unreachable. At a traffic signal, the visitor suffers a heart attack and dies. Introduction of the case. After returning to his town, Nanda receives a call from the Superintendent of Police (SP) asking him to meet. At the station, the SP explains that a circle inspector failed to solve a murder case, which has now been handed over to the crime branch. Nanda initially hesitates due to his personal grief but eventually agrees to take on the case. A junior officer is assigned to assist him. Case details. The victim, Anjali, was found murdered in her house. Anjali was a reserved biomedical engineer working at a hospital. She had no family except her brother Martin, who lives in the US. Martin's friend Jimmy had informed him about Anjali's death, and Martin had returned to India. At the crime scene, forensic reports reveal Anjali was strangled and her throat slit from right to left, suggesting the killer is left-handed. A capsule was found in her mouth containing a note that read, "For Martin." Investigators deduce Anjali was killed to lure Martin to India. Events unfold. On December 6, Martin arrives in Cochin, where Jimmy picks him up from the airport. They are followed by a Contessa car. After visiting Anjali's grave, Martin stays at her house overnight. Late at night, Martin hears a noise from Anjali's room and goes to investigate, only to find the killer standing behind him. The scene cuts. The next morning, police discover Martin's body. Witnesses mention seeing the Contessa near the house around 3 a.m. Forensics reveal Martin was burned after being killed. An old surgery scar on his right leg, with a steel plate, helps identify him. Personal struggles. Nanda's personal life remains strained. His wife's brother, Vinay, recently returned from Dubai. Vinay feels guilty for their family's struggles and is reluctant to stay in Cochin. Nanda advises him to consider pursuing a master's degree instead of leaving for Dubai again. Investigation progress. The inspector working under Nanda suspects Jimmy. Jimmy was not only Martin's best friend but also his business partner. Recently, they had disputes over business issues. Despite trying to convince Martin to return to India earlier, he failed. This raises suspicions that Jimmy orchestrated Anjali's murder to lure Martin to India and then killed him. Forensic evidence also reveals that the killer didn't break into Anjali's house, she had opened the door willingly. This suggests the killer was someone she knew, potentially Jimmy. Investigations continue to unravel the truth. The opening scene shows a man driving a car. He takes out his personal phone, places it aside, and picks up an old phone, switches it on, and makes a call. This man is revealed to be the movie's killer. In the control room, a police officer detects that the phone has been switched on and reports it along with the location. The killer drives his car into a secluded area and stops after a short distance. Opposite his car, an old Contessa car is parked. A man steps out of the Contessa. This person is a key character in the film. The story makes us suspect that this man, referred to here as X, could be the killer. X approaches the killer's car and places his hand on the car's window. The scene cuts here. The next scene shows a woman lying in a pool of blood. She is the wife of Nanda Kishore, the hero of the film, who works as a deputy superintendent in the crime branch. Upon seeing his wife in this condition, the hero rushes her to the hospital. His wife, who initially wanted to commit suicide, changes her mind after this incident. It is revealed that the hero's daughter passed away earlier, leading to his wife's drastic decision to take her own life. As the hero is away, a man visits his house. This man is a neighbor, and though he claims to be a friend, the hero isn't home when he comes. The hero returns to the city and receives a call from his SP, who assigns him a murder case. The local circle inspector could not solve the case, so it has been handed over to the crime branch. The hero, despite his personal challenges, takes up the case. Back at home, the hero reviews the case details. The victim, Anjali, a biomedical engineer, was murdered in her house. She was living under the guardianship of a church father and had no immediate family except for an elder brother, Martin, who lives in the US. The murder happened the previous night, and the evidence shows no forced entry, leading the police to believe Anjali knew her killer. Her boss, Nikhil, describes her as a reserved person who rarely interacted with others. Autopsy reports reveal she was killed by a deep slash on her neck, likely done by a left-handed person. Additionally, a plastic capsule with the note, "For Martin," was found in her stomach, indicating the killer's real target might be Martin. Martin, informed about the tragedy, flies to Cochin on December 7. Jimmy, Martin's friend and business partner, picks him up from the airport in the Contessa car. Later, Martin is also murdered, and his body is burned. The hero takes up the case to find out who killed the siblings and why. Jimmy becomes a primary suspect due to his financial disputes with Martin. However, CCTV footage confirms that Jimmy was at a party during Anjali's murder, clearing his immediate involvement. Another suspect, Tony, a rowdy with a criminal history and connections to Jimmy, emerges. Tony's house is raided, and evidence links him to the crime scenes. However, Tony has been missing since Martin's murder, and his number has been switched off. Call records reveal Tony received a call from a number registered under a fake ID on December 5 at 10 p.m. near the Ramada Hotel, the same hotel where Jimmy attended a party. This raises suspicion that the person using the fake ID might be involved. Further investigation reveals that both numbers were together during Anjali's murder, proving that Tony wasn't acting alone. The hero concludes that the killer might have used Tony to mislead the investigation. Further clues emerge from a party video recorded at the Ramada Hotel. Nikhil, Anjali's boss, becomes a suspect after it is revealed he lied about the videographer leaving the party early. This, coupled with Nikhil's proximity to Anjali and the murder timeline, points the investigation toward him. The suspense builds as the hero pieces together the connections between Nikhil, Tony, and the murders of Anjali and Martin, leading to the film's climax. The SIM card purchased with the fake ID must belong to Nikhil, shifting the hero's focus towards Nikhil. An officer calls Nikhil, requesting his help with the case and asking him to come to the office. Nikhil agrees and turns his car around. While driving, his car seemingly collides with another and comes to a stop. Expecting the driver to confront him, Nikhil waits inside, but no one shows up or approaches. Confused, he leaves for the hero's office. When Nikhil arrives, the hero lies, saying that Jimmy is confirmed as the killer. However, someone who attended the party must confirm seeing Jimmy leave at 11 p.m. The hero asks for Nikhil's help in identifying trustworthy individuals who were present at the party, as most of them worked under Nikhil's supervision. Nikhil agrees and writes down names on a paper, revealing he is left-handed. After Nikhil leaves, the team checks his shoe size, which matches the second footprint found at the crime scene. Jimmy and Nikhil have similar shoe sizes, making this an important piece of evidence, but it's not enough to confirm Nikhil as the killer. Nikhil is shown driving when he notices another car following him. Suspicious, he takes a turn into a narrow alley, trying to evade the follower. Surprisingly, the trailing car passes by without stopping. Relieved, Nikhil starts his car but realizes it won't start. He attempts to make a phone call but doesn't dial the number. Instead, he picks up another phone from the passenger side. The camera zooms out, revealing a Contessa car parked in the alley. A man steps out and approaches Nikhil's car, tapping on the window, and the scene cuts off. When suspicion arises about Nikhil, the police begin tracing his calls. They discover a recording from the night before, where Nikhil spoke to someone. In the recording, Nikhil expresses concern about the police growing suspicious of him. The other person asks for Tony's location, but Nikhil admits he doesn't know. The call ends. The hero concludes that this was an international call. If they trace the caller, it would be easy to identify the mastermind behind the murders. The hero meets a church father and inquires if anyone was particularly fond of Anjali and Martin. The father confirms that Jimmy was close to both, despite the occasional fight between Martin and Jimmy. He also mentions that Martin and Anjali shared everything with Jimmy. However, when it came to sensitive matters, Anjali confided in the father instead. The father shows the hero an album with photos of Martin, Anjali, and Jimmy together. In one photo, the father is seen giving Anjali a book as a birthday gift. This sparks the hero's suspicion about the father. When questioned, the father claims he stayed home the previous night. As the hero returns home, he gets a call from an officer informing him that Martin's phone was unlocked by the technical team, revealing a video. The hero watches the video sent by Anjali to Martin. In the video, Anjali is seen talking to the hero's friend, who approached her with concerns about illegal activities at her workplace. Anjali gathered evidence and handed it over to the friend, who later discovered that Nikhil's office had CCTV cameras. Before Anjali was killed, she called the hero's friend, warning him not to publish the evidence. That night, both Anjali and the hero's friend were murdered. Realizing the significance of the evidence, the hero revisits Anjali's house. While talking to his wife about the puzzle board at home, he recalls that he had separated a particular piece with the phrase, "for Martin." Initially, he read it as, "for Martin," but now realizes it means, "for Martin." He revisits Anjali's house and finds a photo frame with 4 pictures of Martin. Inside the frame, he discovers the evidence Anjali mentioned. The evidence implicates Nikhil as the one who hacked the pacemaker of the hero's friend to kill him. The mastermind behind Nikhil is revealed to be John, the hospital chairman. John had been conducting illegal drug trials on patients under the guise of clinical research. 5 individuals had died due to the experiments, and Anjali uncovered these details. John, who is also a Padma Shri awardee and philanthropist, orchestrated the murders to cover up the scandal. The hero takes this evidence to the SP. However, the SP hesitates to arrest John due to his influential status. Instead, the SP proposes a plan to expose John by implicating him as the one who ordered Tony and Nikhil to commit the murders. The story builds up to a tense climax where the hero pieces together critical clues to identify the mastermind behind a series of murders, including that of his sister. Here's the translation. The hero deduces that the bouquet placed on Anjali's grave is fresh, despite the burial happening last night. Since it's her favorite flower, as mentioned by the priest, it must have been placed that morning. Similarly, there's another bouquet at the site of Tony's death, which appears older. The hero speculates that the killer, who knew these details, must have placed the bouquets. He investigates the bouquet supplier, who confirms that the person who bought the flowers had worn a hood and drove a Contessa car, also ordering a bouquet for the following day. The hero concludes that the killer intends to murder the chairman next. The night Nikhil was killed, the hero realizes the killer might have been following him. CCTV footage confirms this, showing the killer tracking Nikhil's movements. Further investigation at the crime scene reveals a medical bill timestamped at 9:12 p.m., indicating the killer visited the pharmacy before targeting Nikhil. However, the hero finds that the killer's face is obscured on the CCTV footage. The chairman, sensing danger, avoids the police escort and drives home alone. Meanwhile, the hero receives a call from the priest, who shares new information about Anjali's personal life, including her possible lover, Vinay. When the priest sends Vinay's photo to the hero, his expression changes as he connects the dots. The hero's wife, also on the call, reacts similarly. It's revealed that Vinay is the one who killed Tony and Nikhil. Confronting Vinay, the hero learns the truth. Vinay admits to following Nikhil that night out of suspicion, as he remembered Nikhil working with Anjali. He tailed Nikhil to the alley, where he found him dead. The medical bill fell out of Vinay's pocket as he searched Nikhil's belongings for clues. This made him seem guilty, but he denies killing anyone. Meanwhile, the killer tracks the chairman's car and prepares to shoot. The chairman narrowly escapes as the killer is revealed to be part of the police department. The SP orchestrates the killer's release after he claims to have all the incriminating documents stolen from Anjali. The SP had used the situation to trap the chairman while misleading everyone. The hero, unaware of the SP's ploy, receives a call from the chairman. The chairman thanks him for inadvertently aiding his survival. He admits that Anjali uncovered his illegal activities and collected evidence against him. When Nikhil and Tony panicked over the evidence she had, they killed her. Later, Martin was also killed to cover their tracks. The chairman claims he orchestrated everything to protect himself, including manipulating the SP and others in the police department. The hero listens in anger and silence as the chairman mocks him, boasting about his escape and his plan to disappear overseas. The hero then reflects on Anjali's words and actions, realizing she hid the evidence somewhere secure. With this realization, he prepares for the final confrontation, determined to bring justice not just for Anjali, but for everyone the chairman has wronged. After the chairman ends his call with the hero responds cryptically, 21 grams. He explains this refers to the weight a person supposedly loses when they die, indicating the chairman's weight will decrease by 21 grams tonight. Meanwhile, a doctor's car is shown stopped in the middle of the road, with a Contessa car parked opposite. The killer, holding a gun, steps out of the car. The hero, speaking to his wife, clarifies that Vinay is not the killer. When his wife asks who the killer is, the hero explains that it's someone who deeply cared for Anjali and knew her favorite flowers. She then suspects it might be her father, but the hero denies it. The wife then wonders if it could be Jimmy, as he was the one who handed money to Tony and knew about Tony's leg injury, which required a plate to be inserted. The hero again denies this, explaining that while Jimmy was involved, he is not the killer. The hero reveals that the night Martin was murdered, Jimmy was driving the Contessa car in the same area. The car is now being used by the killer. At the crime scene that night, there were only two people, Tony and Martin, both of whom had plates in their legs. While Martin's death seemed straightforward, the hero learns from the doctor that Martin was the one who had orchestrated Tony's death, staging his own death to disappear. The hero realizes Martin is the actual killer. Martin's motivation was revenge for his sister's death, and he killed Tony to eliminate loose ends. Disguised as a ghost of his former self, Martin used Jimmy to divert attention, allowing him to strike freely, killing Nikhil and eventually targeting the chairman. The hero deduces that Martin, having planned this meticulously, would stop at nothing to complete his mission. The hero recalls how he figured it all out. When he visited the beach with Vinay earlier, he was suspicious of Vinay but then dismissed him as a suspect after noticing inconsistencies in the evidence. He sent Vinay's photo to the florist, who confirmed Vinay wasn't the one who purchased the bouquets. At that moment, the hero knew Vinay was innocent but kept this revelation to himself to avoid tipping off anyone else, especially the SP, who was compromised. The hero realized he couldn't act directly against the chairman. With the SP protecting the chairman and evidence destroyed, the hero needed a way to ensure justice without letting Martin become collateral damage. He orchestrated a setup where Vinay would be arrested, not because he was guilty, but to protect him from harm. He knew if Martin wasn't stopped, the blame for the chairman's death would fall on Vinay. As the story concludes, Martin executes his plan and kills the chairman, fulfilling his revenge. The case officially comes to an end, but the hero reflects on the moral complexity of the situation. While justice was served, it came at the cost of bending the rules. The film ends with the